What happens with the taxes after the beneficiary takes over? So this is in reference to a ladybird deed or enhanced life estate deed when the property transfers to the beneficiary, usually called the remainderman on the deed. What happens to taxes? So taxes, first and foremost, is a very general term. There's different types of taxes. So first I'm going to discuss property taxes, which really it depends on who the beneficiary is with regard to property taxes. Sometimes I will do ladybird deeds for a married couple, and maybe they got married later after one of them already owned a home, so both spouses weren't on the title, and rather than add the spouse directly to the title, they will sometimes choose to do a ladybird deed, giving the spouse the property upon the owner, the other spouse's passing. In this instance, since you're married, and if it is your homestead, which I'm assuming in this instance it is, then nothing changes with taxes because it's your homestead property. It has been your homestead property, and as your spouse, you are permitted to have that same homestead exemption as your other spouse. So that's nice. Now, if it's not a spouse, which oftentimes it isn't, more likely it's a child or children, in that instance, when they inherit the property, it then goes into their names or their name if it's one child, or if it's multiple children, into their names. And there will be a reassessment that gets done for property tax purposes. So it does trigger that because it is new ownership. It's no longer owned by the original owner of the property. That owner passes away. You do get to avoid probate with the ladybird deed, which is amazing. But when the beneficiaries take over, they are new owners, so there will be a reassessment, and property taxes would change potentially based on that assessment. Now, how much they would change, it really just depends on what they are currently, and that's something that the county appraiser's office can usually answer. Now, one thing the new beneficiary or beneficiaries can do is, of course, if they're going to be living in the property as their primary residence and they qualify, they can apply for the homestead exemption themselves. So moving forward, although there could be an increase in the property taxes initially, they can at least do something to curb it or make it so that it's not quite as bad moving forward if they are able to apply for the homestead exemption. Now, there's also things like capital gains tax, which is going to come up if a property is sold. The nice thing about inheriting property through a ladybird deed is when you inherit it, you do get what's called a step up in basis for tax purposes. So what that means is, rather than needing to use the number that the original owner purchased the property for. So say it's your parent and they bought the home back in 1970 for $50,000, right? And now it's worth $700,000. Rather than needing to use the number they bought it for to determine what you need to pay for any gain during the sale, which would be large if you're selling it for $700,000 and they bought it for $50,000. That's a $650,000 gain. But you don't have to do that with a ladybird deed. Rather than needing to use what they purchased it for as that number, you actually get to use the date of death value, the fair market value of their date when they died. So if when they passed away, the property is valued at $700,000, and then you turn around and sell it within 6 months to a year, you're obviously going to be selling it for pretty much the same amount, and so you're not going to have to pay capital gains tax under that scenario, which is really nice because depending on how long they've had the property, that could be a chunk of money. So I hope this answers the question, or it's related to the right tax question. If not, you can send me a more specific question. If you have any other questions about ladybird deeds, estate planning, asset protection, Medicaid, probate, and you're in Florida, please don't hesitate to contact our office. We're atCAUSE Law Office, the non-stuffy attorneys, and the link is in my bio.